Hey, good morning, everybody. See some friends and colleagues in the crowd. I want to start, I have a question. How many people in the audience today are from or have a lot of familiarity with the San Antonio, Austin, kind of South Central Texas region? Okay, good. So we are not going to be a complete mystery to you as an organization, nor is our traffic. So I got called in, just a note. I called in to the team here a little bit ago. I don't know who took I-10 in this morning, but there was a wreck. It was a really serious wreck. And I said, hey, you might have to tap dance, tell a joke or something, but it worked out okay. So this area, this San Antonio metropolitan area is 2 million customers. We expect another 1.1 million residents here in this area by 2040, so a 50% increase in the residents here. And that's really an amazing clip of growth. We in this area are obviously in a high growth area. Texas is a high growth state, and all of those people need energy. And so as we plan for the future and we think about what we're going to do to serve those needs, we are the full service provider of electric and gas services in this community. And it isn't a simple answer. We've got a lot of competing priorities here, as all of the utilities in the United States do, and all of you do as well. We have to be secure and safe. We have to be reliable and resilient. We have to be affordable, and also we have to be environmentally responsible. And we can't get out of balance in favor of one at the expense of another. And it's a tricky proposition to think about how we do that, because it's when it's your responsibility as the operator of the system, then you have to think through all of the details about how you're going to make these things all balance. And it is true that we favor renewables, and we're looking to a future of storage, but the trick is, how do you balance that delicate chemistry equation now and into the future so that we get as much as we can, but no more than we can do, meeting those 6 objectives. So we're here in San Antonio, Texas. This is what's sometimes called Military City, USA. We've got a big military presence here. We've got a significant cybersecurity asset base here as well, and a growing technology and energy innovation hub here as well. So it was CPS Energy, and we are $11 billion in assets, AA credit rated, and those facts will have bearing in a little bit. I didn't just say that to brag, though it is pretty nice to be a good credit. We've been on this journey a long time. In 2009 timeframe, we embarked on Vision 2020, which was a set of goals to improve our environmental responsibility to the community. And since then, we've achieved a number of things. We're 65% low carbon. That's something that we have achieved. One of the goals was to be 20% renewable generation. We've achieved that and more. I don't know what the current percentage is, but it's a fair bit more than that now. We reduced NOx and SOx emissions in our community by at least 65%, and in some cases, if you think about what'll be the case by the end of this year with Dealey, our older coal-fired generation units out of the picture as of the end of calendar year 2018, and with burning a lot of natural gas because of cheap Waha gas prices, we're in the 80s for percent NOx and SOx emissions by the end of the year. We're number 6 in solar leadership, and we had a goal for our Save for Tomorrow energy plan, something we called STEP. The goal was to have 771 megawatts of peak reduction, and the idea is that it would be the deferral, or essentially never have to build that marginal unit, which at the time may be coal, maybe a 3-on-1 combined cycle gas plant. But we've achieved that and more, and I think we're just about to declare victory on this with about 825 megawatts of energy efficiency and demand response, and we did it for $130 million less than we planned to do in the beginning. So really a nice achievement by the team. In fact, a fair number of the teammates that are here that are responsible for it are here sitting over there, so thank you to you guys and for the other folks that have collaborated on this. But it doesn't stop there. That's been the journey up through like last year. And this is just a continuous journey that we're on. Last year, our CEO announced something that we call Flexible Path. Flexible Path is not a plan, and it is not a strategy. It is an idea that we're going to adopt the technology as prices fall and efficiency goes up. And we're going to optimize our existing asset base that we already own, we've already taken on debt, we've already paid for, and we're going to optimize those assets to the best of our ability, and we're going to build a portfolio around those things. New additions are solar and storage, and supplemental additions of dispatchable generation are going to be natural gas power purchase agreements or something like that. So that's the current pathway. And along those lines, we continue to think about how we're going to integrate storage as a meaningful part of our supply portfolio. What we've talked about is something that is, something less than 50 megawatts, maybe up to 50 megawatts of storage. And a renewable purchase, a renewable PPA, a solar PPA of up to 900 megawatts with some supplemental gas purchases, as I mentioned. That's something that we're in a public comment period right now, and getting feedback from the community to ask about what sizing feels right from an affordability and a goal-setting standpoint. If we wait until storage is so cheap that everyone can go buy some, then we'll be far behind the power curve. Obviously, we don't want to do that, and that is why we're adding a meaningful amount of storage to this flex power bundle. Though today, as all the folks in this room are sophisticated enough to know, it's not something that we can go replace like our entire fleet with from an affordability standpoint. And we have a few projects that are kind of in flight now. We've got a 5 megawatt, 10 megawatt hour solar plus storage installation over at Southwest Research Institute. And we received a grant from from TCEQ, the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, working on that with a few partners. RES America is one of them. And we're working now, I'm understanding that by the end of this week, we ought to have some things cleared up to be able to offer ancillary services from that project into ERCOT. So that's really an important milestone for us, and something that is important to all of you as well, because if we can't make that ancillary service connection, we can't provide those services for a fee, then part of our value chain, part of the stack of value that is required for a utility like us to make the figures all work out is gone. So it's really important that we were able to clear that hurdle. So we're glad to announce it. We're just about there. We also have a microgrid installation at Joint Base San Antonio. It's a building, and it's a small building. It's a 20 kilowatt solar array with a recloser, a controller, and a 75 kilowatt battery. So that's small. It was put in place a couple years ago. But the idea was to learn something from how the microgrid works, how you use sky imaging, sky imaging and solar forecasting to determine state of charge and the necessary state of charge of that battery to serve as a microgrid that can island whenever necessary for that load. It was not a critical load. It was not a giant project, but we've learned a whole lot from it. It's those experiences and that learning, that experimentation and working through the process that is going to develop all of our safety procedures and all of the operating procedures and work out the kinks of the micro EMS software so that we can do this at scale and make it a much larger part of our portfolio over the long run, and potentially offer microgrids as a service, resiliency as a service to our customers, our customers here. So, as I said, we're have a goal of continuing to innovate and bridging from the assets that we have, operating them as effectively as we can, but moving into that future of majority renewables in storage. As I said, we're in the public comment period, and I'm guessing that we're going to be in market for a RFP by November or something like that. Don't hold me to it, but it'll be out there. We're very public about the timing here. And this is all with the backdrop of ERCOT just got interesting. You know, it's been a long time, right, since anybody cared about what was happening from a pricing and a market standpoint in ERCOT. And if you have a stake in it, you have assets in the market this year. If you are short, looking out next year, I think that this is something that you've stood up and taken notice of. All of the country has. For folks who may not know, reserve margins in ERCOT have, last year looking forward to this year, look pretty thin, far below the 13% planning reserve margin target that ERCOT is aiming toward. And summer's not over yet, but we've already broken the ERCOT peak record and also the CPS Energy system load record. CPS Energy has broken ours, I think, twice this year. Again, the summer's not over yet, but if you look forward 12 or so days, it doesn't look like it's going to be, over 100 in the major load centers here. So the story might be in the books for this year, but it was quite a story. We had, for reference, 2018 had 10 hours where prices were above $1,000 a megawatt hour. And also for reference, our 7x24, the around the clock power prices in ERCOT are sub $30, and $1,000, quite a number, 10 times last year, 10 hours. For the year to date so far, 2019, there have been 70 hours of greater than 1,000 hour pricing. That's a lot of money in play, and it's beginning to look like, with weather next year, if it were to look a lot like it is this year, that maybe there's some more money out there to be made and to be lost. And I want to stress the loss too, because for everybody paying $1,000 a megawatt hour, there's somebody buying it. So that's something that we are mindful of, and one of the reasons why we have to take great care with the integration of our resources. The wind doesn't always blow, as you know, and at that time when those prices were high, we were operating at about 10% ERCOT-wide of our total installed capacity, nameplate capacity for wind. And so you can't obviously make that the cornerstone of your supply. In 2018, there were 0 hours of prices at the $9,000 system-wide offer cap. In 2019, year to date, there have been 4. And the ORDC, which had an adjustment to it, it moved the curve a little, depending on how you're looking at it, to the left, I guess, so that prices now get higher faster. The highest price there was $8,600, and the highest price for the prior was $900. With that capacity reserve margin situation as it is, and with prices as transient as they are, it is ultimately very, very critical that we can figure out how to integrate storage into the system. If we're not going to rely as the cornerstone, as the base load of our system on traditional resources that could be dispatched and ramped quickly and so on, then we've got to have some replacement for that. And we have a belief that storage will be that quick responding capacity in ways that even the thermal assets couldn't do it. But that's something that we're working toward now. One thing that we've been thinking about lately is that a storage system is not a storage system, is not a storage system. You've sort of got to think about the purpose for which you're going to install and build that system. And as we think about the value stacking and how you achieve all of the component pieces of the cost so that you are generating an NPV positive investment, how do you get all of those pieces to all line up? And at what point the prices have to be in order to make that happen? I think everybody in this room probably has an opinion on this. Once again, it's really important that we're meeting the scarcity and the quick ramping component of price arbitrage, call it, plus the ancillary services component that we're putting together, plus non-wires alternative component that we're working on, plus the ability to do microgrids as a service, either community size microgrids, neighborhood size, residential size, to put those all together. And the message here is that we're working on it, and we're going to, in the end, partner with a lot of you and value the dialogue with a lot of you to figure out how to make this work. And we have a pathway, and we have a philosophy that is driving us this way, but we have not solved all those issues, and we look to the community and the market participants and industry to work together to get to this place. I assume that's why many of you are here. I think that you all have an opportunity to solve some pretty interesting problems. And I have 3 kids, a 10-year-old, 7-year-old, and a 5-year-old. And I talk to them about a lot of stuff. And one of the things I talk to them about, because this is my industry, is the problems that will be left to them to solve. One of them is AI. This is kind of a side note. This is not what we're here to talk about, but I think that somebody of their generation is going to be making big decisions about how we integrate that and where the lines should be from an operational and an ethical standpoint and all those things. So that's a really fascinating question. But more germane to this conversation is how you really build a industry and a power system that can operate essentially into the future without thermal storage. Thermal generation. So really fascinating question. And with that backdrop, I will exit the stage here, but I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you this morning, and I hope you all find a lot of value in this conversation. Really excited to hear what we talk about here, and thanks again. Thank you.